Welcome once again to a live edition, August 21st, 1995, of the Kyle Report, and I'm your host, Chuck Lee. And as usual with me is my rusty, trusty sidekick who was chasing pretty women down in Ames, Iowa over the weekend, Fred, the woman chaser Stafford.
Oh, yes, and here we Chuck Lee,
the
woman chaser too.
Yeah. All right, Fred. We're glad to see that you can make it tonight, Fred. What's it been now? 20, 25 years you've been on the show?
No.
What are you doing over there?
What is it doing over there? Where?
Over there.
Getting dressed.
All right, okay. August 21st, Fred. While you're getting your clothes on here, we've kind of had a little bit of delay here at the beginning, waiting for the other show to get off the air. And of course, when we're coming to you live, it's just take it as it comes here, because anything can happen on a live show, Fred.
Yes.
We've had cattle in the studio here one night. And
that's it.
We had buffaloes
I didn't
and
see any of them.
elephants and lions and tigers and snakes.
I didn't see any of them.
Poison handlers and snake handlers. And well, Fred, you know, we had a big old time down there in Iowa over the weekend.
Yes.
And we were in a big auditorium with about 12,000 Republicans, all hooping and hollering for 10 different Republican candidates running for the opportunity to whip that hillbilly socialist from Arkansas. And it looks like they got a pretty good start.
Yes.
There was some pretty exciting speeches down there, and a lot of hoopla and balloons and pretty girls and great speeches. And we just had a big old time down there.
Well, I guess we did to a certain extent there. I think there was a lot of enthusiasm exhibited by those who were attending and waving signs for their candidates.
One thing all 12,000 of them agreed on, Fred, and that's to beat the president in 96. And of course, the surprise of the whole thing was you and I were on our way back from Iowa late that night was the results of the straw poll, which is the #1 barometer of who's in the lead going into the 96 elections. It's the biggest polling of the year, and it's called the Iowa Straw Poll, and that's conducted during the Iowa Republican convention down there. And the surprise was that Phil Gramm tied with Bob Dole for first place. Exactly, a tie.
He brought up 9 busloads or more of people from Texas to support him.
And there was one crybaby that was going to go with us and vote for Phil Gramm. That would have busted the vote, but he didn't make it down there with us, Fred. So
yeah.
he can be, if he's watching right now, we're going to dump all kinds of guilt on him, because he would have been the tiebreaker, and they would have put Phil Gramm over the top, and he was a Gramm supporter.
Yes.
And he didn't make it down there. So unfortunately, lack of his vote cost Phil Gramm the victory. But Gramm is already claiming victory because of tying with Dole, because in the past it's appeared like Dole has been so far ahead that nobody could touch him. Well, Dole has stumbled now. Of course, his age doesn't help him any, being in his 70s.
One thing I would say that Dole gave, as far as I was concerned, a speech that lacked any fire or any enthusiasm.
Well, I've watched...
Like he was tired or something.
We've got 4 hours of footage from that Saturday afternoon and evening, and we'll be showing excerpts from that later tonight, and in the shows over the next few weeks. We've got some footage of Pat Buchanan signing autographs, and we've got some good footage tonight of Alan Keyes giving a speech to his roughly 1,000 supporters that were in his tent, and we'll be playing that here in about 10 minutes. And then we'll take some calls when we'll take maybe a couple calls before the beginning of that 30-minute film, and then the last 15 minutes of the program we'll take some more calls and see what kind of comments we get on the Alan Keyes speech. Now, while I was over there filming that, you were over there hobnobbing with C-SPAN and Pat Buchanan and all the hot dogs and hamburgers and pretty girls up there and listening to that rock and roll music. You were right up front, I bet.
Country rock.
Yeah.
I was up there where you had set your tripod.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we saw one person we knew down there, and that was Byron Dale, who's been on this show. He was down there telling Lugar people, Lugar, who's running for president from Indiana, he was talking to his people, trying to tell them about the Federal Reserve System, and he said he was going to go around to all 10 candidates' headquarters down there and talk to each one of them about the money system. Of course, we had him on this show about probably a year ago now, and that was a good program. But you know, Fred, the surprising thing, we got footage of it, was the poor speech and the booing that Arlen Specter got. Out of 12,000 people there, he got less than 80 votes, I think. And he got thousands of boos. The only time I think he got an applause is when he said where he'd voted for one pro-life state U.S. Supreme Court justice. But other than that, that guy might as well hang it up, because he's not going to get more than 1 or 2% of any vote. But he's definitely trying to pull the already liberal, moderate to liberal wing of the party farther to the left, and he plans on taking his case all the way to San Diego in '96 to see if he can get the pro-life plank thrown out of the party and throw the Republican Party into chaos so that Clinton can win again. And that's exactly what he'll do if he succeeds.
Yes.
But he sure got the boos when he was trying to talk about taking that out of the plank, wasn't he?
He certainly did.
Okay, Freddie, well, you know, on this show we try to stump you. What's it been now, 20 years since you haven't been able to answer one of these questions? And you know, of course, today is August 21st, and so you got that part right without even trying. So on this date, Fred, August 21st, 1858, Stephen Douglas and Abraham Lincoln hold the first of their series of debates. These debates bring national attention on both men. What parties were they in?
Well, I know that Lincoln was in the Democratic Party and was Douglas in the Whig Party?
Well, there's something like that, Fred. Actually, Abraham Lincoln was the first Republican presidential candidate in 1860. Of course, this was 2 years before that. They were already debating in 1858 for the 1860 election. So they got an early start there. Of course, maybe this could have been I mean, that seems awful early for the 1860 election to start debating 2 years ahead of time. Maybe this was during that Senate race. But anyway, I know for sure Abraham Lincoln was a Republican.
Yes.
So we'll give you one more here, Fred. That one was a little tricky. In 1959, on August 21st, Fred, Hawaii is admitted to the Union as the 50th state. What state was the 50th state?
Hawaii.
That's right. Okay, we're going to take a call here and see how the phones are working. And Fred, we got a hot news flash from over at the school board meeting tonight. The school board was presented with a proposal to remodel the auditorium at Memorial. And this is not part of a bond issue. It was triggered by a roof leak that got the ceiling wet. It was a possible site for asbestos release. The estimate came in at $988,000, put a new ceiling on the auditorium, plus $95,000 in consulting fees. In other words, there's going to be a guy that goes through there and looks around like that, then holds his hand out for $95 for consulting fees. Then the other $988,000 goes for actual repair. And I'm sure that's going to wreak havoc with the school budget in the area.
You know, I don't think that asbestos is a threat which the environmentalists claim to be. And I know I went to school where they had asbestos in the ceilings, in the walls and whatnot, and it didn't make me sick. Nor
People used to
anybody
roll
else
around
there.
that stuff and breathe it, and wear it for clothes and everything else. Back in
Right.
the old days, they had asbestos suits. Okay, Freddie, one other thing, then we're going to take a call here, and this is kind of interesting. Now they're coming up with the, they're starting to tell us exactly what did happen down there when New Mexico collapsed and the United States had to go in there and bail them out with all those billions of dollars. And the state of Wisconsin lost roughly $120 million of hard-earned tax money that was invested in some kind of retirement fund or something. Anyway, the state lost it in the boondoggle down there in Mexico. But now they're coming to find out that officials had earlier suggested the peso crisis was triggered by primarily foreign, not domestic investors dumping the currency in response to political unrest. So Pat Buchanan said Saturday night, Fred, that all the money that the United States dumped in there was to bail out some rich eastern banks.
Right.
In the United States, it had nothing to do with helping poor Mexicans. They're just as poor or poorer than they ever were.
J.P. Morgan and...
It was all a scheme by the United States government to bail out a bunch of banks that made some bad loans in Mexico. And the taxpayers got to pay the bill.
If they made a profit there, they would have kept the money. They wouldn't have given it to us. I don't see why we should bail those banks out. They took the risk, and they have to pay for it.
That's right. That's what banking's all about. But it seems like the American taxpayer has been put on the hook for all these bank failures over the last 10 years, including ones in Mexico. All right, Fred, we're going to take a call here, and then we're going to get right into our video of Alan Keyes giving a speech to his 1,000 followers before he went inside and gave his milder speech inside. This is a little more fiery speech that he gave before that. So go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Chuck.
Hello.
How you doing?
Okay, how are you today?
I'm just fine. Have you heard about the latest attempt for the Leader Telegram to thwart your run for election?
No, what they do now. Wouldn't be surprised what they're up to.
Oh, well, they're saying that you're a flaming queer.
They are. What edition was that in?
I'm not really sure the specific edition, but they said that they saw you at Scruples.
They did?
Yeah, and you were giving another guy head.
Huh. Okay, Fred. We'll take one more call, and then we're going to go to our video. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hello, Chuck.
Yeah.
Chuck and Fred, where's the glove? You got your glove on tonight, Chuck?
Yeah, right there.
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah.
You can sit there down at the public access, and you can talk about your trivia questions and all this, but 1/15/91 is the day it all begun. There's a major racial war going on right now in the United States, and I don't think you're aware of it.
What happened in 1/15/91?
That's the day we went into Kuwait.
Oh, so how does that make
the day it all begun, my friend. Major racial war going on right now in the United States, and I believe by the year 2000 the white race is going to be extinct. And how do you feel about that?
Well, how did going over to Kuwait in 91 start a race war in this country?
Oh. Don't you know about all the Arabs that they brought back over with them on the naval vessels? We have millions of Arabs from Kuwait, Saudi Arabia coming in, living off welfare, driving Cadillacs around. Got like 10, 20 of them living in a house down there by, what is that down there? The Ho Chi Minh Trail down there, off of Madison Street. All them Arabs down there.
Okay, all right, Fred. I haven't seen millions of Arabs in Eau Claire yet.
No.
So we have to keep our eye open for that, Fred, because things are heating up again over by Kuwait.
I think there's quite a few Hmongs in that area.
Yeah, but that's different than Arabs.
I know it.
There were some Iraqis that fought against Americans that ended up over here after the war through some kind of immigration scheme, but other than that, we haven't heard any reports of millions of Arabs over here. But I did we're going to take this, I'm going to read this one final thing, Fred, because we had some guy that was worried about homosexuality and Scruples, the so-called gay bar here in town, Fred, that all the socialist people in the audience viewing tonight will enjoy this. One of their socialist brethren over in Zimbabwe used to be called Rhodesia,
Mm-hmm.
President Robert Mugabe has threatened to jail gays and lesbians only 8 days after describing them as subhumans who are worse than dogs and pigs. So this is a Reuters news service release from the 16th of August,
Mm-hmm.
Fred, and this is the president of a nation, of a socialist nation over there. It's been socialist for roughly 15 years now, and they threw out Ian Smith and the old, basically what it was, the British Empire that was in there. Whoever,
Yes.
and Ian Smith kind of sold out the white folks down there, and the Rhodesian blacks
Well,
took over.
he was forced more or less to do that by the British government.
Well, anyway, Robert Mugabe has really gone off on this tangent now about going after the homosexuals in Zimbabwe, and he says sodomy and unnatural sex acts are illegal in Zimbabwe and carry penalties ranging from 5 to 10 years in prison. Last week, Mugabe told thousands of people at a ceremony to commemorate Zimbabwean heroes that homosexuality degraded human dignity. It's unnatural, and there's no question ever of allowing these people to behave worse than dogs and pigs. If dogs and pigs do not do it, why must human beings? We have our own culture, and we must rededicate ourselves to our traditional values and make us human beings. That's coming from one of the socialist slash communist leaders of the world, and so beware out there, because now the socialists are getting in on the act, Fred. So when they start talking like that, they could start beheading people, because they don't value life as much as some of the Christian nations. Okay, we're going to go to, I think we're going to take this one final call from a friend of yours, Fred, then we're going to go to our video. Go ahead, Buck, you're on the air.
How you doing, Chuck and Fred?
All right. How are you tonight?
Well, once again, you guys did the best over Monday Night Football.
Yeah, who's playing over there on that little unknown station that game's on?
I don't know. I think it's a junior varsity game. You guys are the varsity.
That's what I hear.
I'd be calling earlier, but this is up in Canada.
Oh yeah, you're still up there. Do you what?
I got back.
What do you do? Come across the border to get your Social Security or what?
Healthcare.
Okay, all right.
Here, we were up there. The fires chased us out. We were up Northern Light Lake, just east of the Boundary Waters.
Yeah.
We could smell the fires and see the smoke from them, but we made her back all right.
I heard it was pretty rough up there.
Yeah, the common man, he hasn't been bothering you lately, has he?
No, we ran him off. I think he's pretty much hung it up there. He's off looking at cars to buy for next year's racing season or something of that nature.
Well, you're right on that socialistic health care up in Canada. If they want good treatment, they come over to the U.S.
That's for sure, hey?
How do you spell Canada?
I don't know, Fred. How do you spell
C-A-N-A-D-A?
Yes.
it? Yeah?
Well, I'll be heading back up to Canada, probably catch some late season walleyes. I'll listen to who's talking now in this video.
This is Alan Keyes, firebrand Republican, former, was he, Fred, an ambassador to the United Nations?
Who's your pick for Republican? Has Graham got a chance?
I would say your best bet is, right now, it'd be Pat Buchanan. And if him and Keyes unite, there's going to be a three-way race between Buchanan, Dole, and Graham for the nomination.
What about Colin Powell?
I don't think he's going to get in there. It's getting late. If he's going to do anything, he's got to do it quick.
Whatever, we got to keep that Arkansas guy out of there.
Yeah, the hillbilly socialists, he's starting to look back over his shoulder.
Well, you had a good speaker the other night on that conspiracy deal, that guy that you talked to long distance.
Yeah.
Get more of them guys on there.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Well, I'm heading back up to Canada.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for calling.
Bye
We'll
now.
talk to you again.
See you, Fred.
Bye. Okay, Freddie, well, if the cameraman, or if the Roy Rogers Hoff is ready to run that video, go ahead, Roy. We've got about 30 minutes of video there of Alan Keyes, presidential candidate. Go ahead and roll it, Roy.
unfortunate.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. First order of business today, let me introduce my family. We have my wife, Jocelyn, my son, Francis, my son, Andrew, and the most famous member of the children so far, made famous erroneously, I'm afraid, by Rush Limbaugh. And actually, I was in the process of writing a letter to Rush correcting the impression that Ross Perot cold-cocked her at the United We Stand Convention. My daughter, Maya. From her 8 rounds with Ross Perot in each corner. Excellent. I'm not at all sure where Ross got the idea, but apparently it looked like that on camera or something, but it didn't really turn out that way. I mean, it's bad enough what he actually did do, leaving aside perhaps the salty money. You want to sit down? Might be more comfortable. No, because you have heard the story of Dallas, right? Has everybody here heard what happened to Dallas by now? No? Well, you know, our folks in Dallas, and where's Carla Michelle? Right back there. Where? Is she here? She's got to be here from Dallas. But anyway, our worker from Dallas, who was manning our booth at the United We Stand America Convention, and they were showing, in cooperation with Operation Rescue, a couple of pro-life videos. One was I Pledge Allegiance to the Lamb, the other The Harder Truth, it was called. And the Ross Perot people approached them and said that they had to stop showing these videos. They were offensive. And of course my campaign workers said no, they were not going to stop showing the videos because this is part of my campaign message, to be pro-life. Yes. Well, this posed such a tremendous threat to the peace and security of Dallas and the United We Stand America people that they called in the tactical weapons team. And there was a picture in the paper the next day, these burly police officers from the SWAT team escorting my diminutive, inoffensive, soft-spoken Christian lady out of the Ross Perot Convention because she was standing up for nascent children. Well, I'll tell you, a prouder moment has not occurred in the Keys campaign, and I love it. We are. Now, I have to explain though the real punchline of that story, because I was able to find out in the afternoon exactly why it was that Ross Perot didn't want the pro-life message to be distributed at his convention. You know, he is pro-abortion, right? Everybody knows this? And so I go into the convention in the afternoon and I deliver a message that makes clear that if you want to be a fiscal conservative, you've got to be a moral conservative. And if you want to be a moral conservative, you've got to face up to the abortion issue. And guess what? I got a rousing ovation from the crowd, 60% of them on their feet when I said no to abortion. And I got to tell you, I'm so glad I didn't let myself be intimidated. Because what Ross Perot was afraid we'd find out is that the media are lying, and that in point of fact, amongst those money conservatives at the Ross Perot United We Stand America Convention, there was a great majority of moral conservatives who understand that you can't save money in this country if you're not willing to save the lives of the unborn. I do wish, you know, that everybody would have followed the same tack. I am not accustomed usually to talking a lot about my opponents in my speeches, but I was very disappointed. And I see some folks with Pat Buchanan hats on. Hello, welcome to my tent. I've got to tell you, though, when Pat Buchanan stood in front of the Ross Perot people, he told them only one thing about the abortion issue. And it wasn't something I was pleased to hear him say. All around this country, Arlen Specter and Pete Wilson and all these pro-abortion Republicans have been going around telling people that the pro-life issue is divisive and that it's got to be taken out of the Republican platform. And I've been glad to see Bob Thurman and Pat Buchanan and myself standing up to articulate a strong and forthright pro-life position. But I was very unhappy that the only thing Pat found to say to the United We Stand America crowd was that, well, then there's pro-life, and that's divisive. Pat is not divisive. I've got news for you. It represents the Declaration principle, that we have our rights from God principle, that we have inalienable rights, that every human power must respect principles. Those Declaration principles are the ground of our unity. They're what make us one nation under God, and standing up for them is not divisive. And that is the message that we are carrying into every state, before every group, before every crowd, anywhere we go in America. I know there are some people who think you go before one group and say what they want to hear, and then you go before another group and you say what they want to hear. And by the time you're done, you probably don't even remember anymore what it is that you want to hear and that God wants to hear. But in this campaign, it's going to be the latter that triumphs. We are going to stand on those principles that made this country great and strong. And we're going to stand on them no matter what, no matter where, no matter who. And there's good reason for it. Now, I'm being accused these days, and I'm so glad of it. I mean, I have folks who are part of my campaign structure. George Uribe over there. George, hi, how are you doing? And George, Kenneth Taft, and Sidney, and others who work on the national campaign. That months ago, I said we were working for the day when I would be called a one-issue candidate. And I love it. Because if the vote is thinking, I want to be the guy standing there saying there's a hole in the bottom of the vote, that one issue, I'll be glad to point out. And the hole in the bottom of this vote today is the fracturing of America's moral character and moral fabric. The hole in the bottom of the vote is turning away from the Declaration principles that tell us that our rights come from God, not from the choice of our mothers, not from the decisions of Congress, not from the decisions of the Supreme Court, but from the hands of Almighty God. And all we have the right to do is respect His will. I'll stand for that one issue, anytime, anywhere. And there is. There's a practical. There's a very practical side, too, to what we are standing for. There are those people who say, you know, that what we really need to be worrying about is the budget issues and the money issues, and going around preaching, that's all well and good, but it doesn't have any effect on what a president really has to do. Have you heard this one? I'm hearing it from the media and other people these days. Why is it that they don't see? You read the papers, you look at all the things that are going on in the country, you watch the debates in Congress, and as I said all over the country, one thing jumps out at you. Every single problem that we are debating, that we are spending so much money trying to resolve, all these problems that we're dealing with government bureaucracy and government programs and government structures are in the end related to what? to the breakdown of the marriage-based family. And that in turn is related to what? To the loss of our moral capacity to sustain family love and family life. And that means that if we don't address the moral questions, we can't put family back together. And if we don't put family back together, we'll go on breaking the budget, trying to deal with the consequences of family breakdown. So if there are folks out there, and you'll probably encounter them here, you know, people who want to know about does Alan Keyes care about the tax issues and the money issues and the budget issues? So I'll hold my record up against the best of them. When my friend Bob Dole and Phil Graham and all those people were busily voting for the tax surrender in 1990, remember that? The budget deal of 1990, the infamous budget deal that led George Bush to break his promise to the American people and lose the 1992 election. Remember that one? Well, I watched that going on. I was president of Citizens Against Government Waste at the time. And as a result of that surrender and sellout, we decided to go around the country and organize people in Taxpayer Action Day demonstrations in every district, in every state, all across this nation. We only had 3.5 months to do it. But people were so upset by what they saw going on in Washington that we had no trouble doing it at all. We got them out all over America and into the streets where folks in the Senate had said they would never come to show their initiative, to demonstrate their concern about what was happening to this country's resources. But I told people even then that the reason we had to be concerned about the money issues was that if we surrender control over our economic resources, if we give our dollars to politicians and bureaucrats so they can make all the decisions, we are stealing from ourselves the material resource base we need to meet our moral responsibilities. That is the real danger in surrendering power and money to Washington or any other bureaucracy. If we understand those money issues in the right context, what we really see is not only can't we resolve them without addressing the moral crisis the country faces, but the reason we should mostly care about them is because without them we can't maintain the wherewithal to be the kind of people we are supposed to be. That was laid down in the beginning. The founders didn't say that this was a country all about getting the best government we can. I listen to folks talk about this these days and it worries me a little. A lot of our leaders think that we are in the midst of a crisis of government. If we were in the midst of a crisis of government, I'm not sure it would bother me too much. Given what the government is doing to us, given what the government takes from us, given the bad job the government generally does in what it tries to do, a good long crisis for the government might be relief for the rest of us. It is my intention when I go to Washington, D.C., I want to make sure we provoke such a crisis. We're going to provoke it because we're going to confront them with the truth. It's time we took the power that has been concentrated in the hands of politicians and bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. And we don't want to go there and use it nicely. We don't want to go there and use it well. We don't want to go there and govern better than the other guys. I want to go there and break up that concentration of power, break up that concentration of resources, and send it back home to the people of this country where it belongs. And that means that in a lot of specific areas, the agenda becomes pretty clear. Whenever you have a choice between leaving power with the government and giving power to the people, we're going to give power to the people. We're going to put power back in the hands of grassroots Americans. Power to administer the programs that are supposed to be helping people, for instance. I've been watching this debate over welfare. Interesting debate. I'm going to use it today in my speech because it's the perfect illustration of how you go wrong when you look at America's problems only through the money lenses. they're looking at the problems of the poor and the welfare people through money lenses, and they come to one conclusion, that we've got to get those welfare people to work. And you go over to the Pat Buchanan town and say that, or to the Graham Pet and Graham will say that, to the Dole Pet, Dole will say that, and everybody will applaud. Well, I'm sure glad that we have the thoughtful Americans in my pen here. But there are some people here who've begun to realize that if all you do is put the welfare people to work, most of the welfare people are welfare mothers. And I asked all the other candidates whether in their heart of hearts they really believe that the problem of poverty is going to be solved by putting more mothers to work in the workplace and destroying what is left of the families of the poor. I don't think it's true. We spent 30, 40 years writing welfare regulations that drove fathers out of the home. Now we've got these bright politicians writing regulations to pluck the mothers out and put them in the workplace. And yet every study you read doesn't tell you that it's joblessness that causes these problems. It tells you that the real root of the poverty problem is not the lack of jobs, it is the lack of marriage. How come they're not talking about that one? So what we should really be doing, think it through. What we should really be doing is devising programs, devising approaches that are aimed at getting the welfare mothers to marry, supporting them in a choice, giving them incentives to that choice, compelling the young men and other men who are beginning children to meet their responsibilities. And if they refuse to, let's compel them to do what they're supposed to do. And finally, we also know that if you want to have a system of health that actually encourages people in the right direction, encourages them to marry and take care of their kids, you better not leave the administration of that system in the hands of a government bureaucracy. If you really want people to get the kind of help they need, then turn the administration of the helping program back over to the non-government, private sector, church-based, faith-based, network organizations that will address the whole person, not just the money person. And the same is true. The same thing turns out to be true when you look at education. And they talk about all our education problems. They do all the fancy studies to find out what's wrong, what's right. And it turns out, is the best path to good education to pour more money into it? No, it's not. Is it class size? Is it pupil-teacher ratio? No, it's not. The decisive factor turns out to be home environment. It turns out to be that if we want a decent education system, then we're going to have to put the burden and the responsibility and the power and the respect back in the hands of parents where it belongs. And that means that we need an approach to education that puts the #1 priority on making sure that parents have the choice to send their children to schools that reflect their faith and values, and to put together schools that reflect their faith and values. And that way we're going to get to an education system that puts God back in the schools and prayer back in the heart and character back in the curriculum as the foundation of decent education. So you see, all of these folks who are telling you that the moral priorities are practical priorities turn out to be not very practical themselves. They turn out to be people whose welfare approach will continue to destroy families, and whose education approach will continue to destroy character. And we don't need either one. What we need is to understand that if we want to do what's practically right for America, then we're going to have to do what's morally right. And if we can't get that right, the rest of it isn't going to matter at all. So let's you and I work together for one thing. We're going to work together to make sure that the Republican Party, above all, stays where it belongs on the important moral questions. And I'm going to say unequivocally today what I wouldn't have said a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I'm going to state it unequivocally. I look around me now at the field of Republican candidates, and I don't see anyone who is not pandering to the wrong views and the wrong approaches. I don't see anyone who will not sacrifice the moral priorities if they think it's going to win them a few votes. And that is wrong. And all I'd like to tell, I'd like to say, and I'll say it again, particularly to my Pat Buchanan visitors, go back to his tent, and you tell them there's one candidate left in the race who does not think that the pro-life moral issues are divisive, and who's going to prove it. I'm going to go around this country, and I'm going to rally every decent, declaration-minded American to stand up for the life of the unborn, to stand on the principles of the Declaration. I'm going to prove Pat Buchanan is wrong. In the end, my friends, I think that's what it really is about. And I'll be talking about that in my little speech this evening because I think it's terribly important that whatever we do, however we approach the issues, we do it in a way that calls Americans back to their common ground. We've got so many things these days. Whether you're watching the media, or watching the O.J. Simpson trial, or reading the newspaper, or watching all the different politicians do their work, we've got so many things and so many people trying to pull us apart. So many people trying to tell us that we have to think like black folks and white folks and Jewish folks and Christian folks and Protestants and Catholics and all the differences between us, that they matter more than anything. And yet I look at the history of this country and I find that every important triumph, every important advance, every step of progress that we have made in light of the common principles of justice that make us one people. We do have a ground for being a united people, for being one nation, for being Americans all. But that ground is not something you can touch, it's not something you can feel, it's not something you can look at with your eyes. It is the allegiance we have to those moral principles that state unequivocally that God is our Creator, that He endowed us with unalienable rights, and that fact, that truth alone is the foundation of all human justice and all political rights. And we can carry that message. We can carry that message everywhere, but it is going to require some courage. It's going to require the kind of courage that men like Lon Mabon are showing in this country. Stand up, Lon, so everybody can meet you. My breath money. Yes, it's going to require that kind of courage. It's going to require the kind of courage that will allow people to see that you've got to speak out against those things that violate our Declaration principles. When they tell us that whether that unborn child lives or dies is a matter of the mother's choice, we've got to tell them without fear that our Declaration said that was God's choice and nobody else has the right to do something. That kind of courage, we'll be able to call this country back to a right understanding of freedom. An understanding of freedom that doesn't promise everybody they can do everything they please, but instead makes it clear that since our rights come from God's authority, they have to be exercised with respect for that authority. That since our rights depend on God's will and God's existence, we can't afford to put our will and our desires in the place of His authority. And that's not, by the way. There'll be people out there who say, oh, that's divisive, that's making a statement of religious view, nothing of the kind. What it's really doing is making a statement about the principles of right and justice that are part of our American creed and that have shaped our American identity since the beginning. If we want to have a chance to see this great republic survive and flourish into the 21st century, then we have got to work hard to call America back to those basic founding principles, to remind Americans that this country is not about money problems and money priorities and money identities, but that since the beginning it has been about moral principles and our moral identity that we hold in common as a people, that have led us to fight the great wars and withstand the great battles, and to in the end hold up before all of humankind a shining example of what the human race can become when it lives in the fear of God and with respect for the intrinsic dignity of each and every human being. That is our mission as a people. That is our mission as a nation. That is why God has placed the hand of his almighty providence on this nation through every year and decade of its existence. Let us not abandon the mission that he has set before us. Let us not abandon the hope that he has made possible with his grace in this our great and native land. Let us move forward with those principles in our hearts and on our lips and in our actions, and let us unite the people of this nation behind the great banner that reads freedom and self-government, freedom and self-discipline, all together, one and united, one and inseparable as the foundation of this nation's strength and success. That's what the King's campaign is all about. And we are going to spread those words and that principle into every corner of this land. With God's help and with your strength, we will move ahead and we will prevail. Thank you.
Okay, well, there you have it, Fred. It's, you know, I've never seen so many white people cheering a black man before, Fred, except for maybe Jesse Jackson. And that kind of speech there really gets the crowds going. And 20 years ago, he probably wouldn't been able to stand up and speak like that. But in today's climate, Fred, it doesn't matter what color you are. If you got the right words to say, people listen no matter what race, creed, or color they are. They'll listen. It doesn't matter what race, creed, or color the speaker is.
He ran for the Senate in Maryland, I guess, twice.
Yes, he did pretty good out there. Now, well, Fred, that was just one little bit of the 4 hours worth of videotape we got from the Saturday meeting down in Ames, Iowa. And we'll be, over the next few weeks, we'll be showing other excerpts from Pat Buchanan's speech, and Dan Quayle gave a good speech, and Marilyn Quayle gave the opening prayer, and there was, we'll play the Arlen Specter tape where he gets booed for about 15 minutes straight. Every word that came out of his mouth, except when he finally said goodbye, they cheered. And of course, we'll have Pat Buchanan's speech from that night too, and Bob Dole's and Phil Graham's. We got every speech. Even B1 Bob Dornan came in on a plane late that night, and he even spoke. So, Fred, we're going to take a call here in a second, but first of all, Fred, since this is August 21st, 1995, we're going to have to ask you one more question on what happened roughly on this date in history. Tomorrow, Fred, August 22nd, 1989. Nolan Ryan of the Texas Rangers records his major league record 5,000th strikeout. That was in 1989, Nolan Ryan, the Texas Rangers. That was a record. How many strikeouts?
5,000, of course.
That's right. Okay, we're going to take a call on line 2. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah. I think you should let Fred talk a lot more. You don't let him talk very much.
It's pretty hard for him to talk when Alan Keyes is on for 30 minutes.
Well, I mean, you don't let him talk at all. And you just ask him those questions that are really easy. He knows everything.
I know.
He's pretty cool.
That's why he's my rusty trusty sidekick.
Yeah. What's Flavin' Pop?
Flavin. Fred, I'll let You can see how
It's not pop, it's slop.
you can see how it turns Freddie on. Flavin Pop came over from the old country with the Flavin family back in the 1800s. They came from the old country, and they settled here in the Chippewa Valley, and Flavin Pop is basically the flagship of the company, and they underwrite this program.
Oh.
If it wasn't for the fine folks with the Flavin family, this program wouldn't go on the air because of the many dollars that it takes to run this program. So we get a grant from the Flavin Pop company to run the program.
Oh.
And we appreciate that very much. So what's your question tonight?
Well, I don't really have a question, but I just had a comment. You know, on your sign it says the Cow Report with Chuck Lee, and you should put and Fred Stafford too.
Okay, maybe we'll put that underneath the Flavin Pop sign.
Okay.
All right, well, thanks a lot.
Yep. Bye.
Okay, bye. All right, Freddie, have you got one little nugget of wisdom there for your many thousands of fans?
The economic effects of the free trade agreement under the U.S. company slapped leather across the southern border to exploit cheap Mexican labor are now clear. Last December, Congressional Joint Committee, Economic Committee report found that in the first 9 months after NAFTA, Mexican imports to the United States cost 137,000 jobs.
That's right. That's why they stood up and hooted and hollered for Pat Buchanan down in Dallas at the United We Stand convention. 5,000 parasites down there jumped up and just slobbered all over themselves for Pat Buchanan because he was telling the truth when he said it's a bust. NAFTA is a bust for the American worker. And maybe these union workers out there will wake up before they get on the unemployment line, Fred, because we're being inundated with foreigners that are willing to work for $4.25 an hour, and the jobs that aren't getting taken away from Americans that way are being shipped overseas to places like Singapore where they'll work for 75 cents an hour and be glad to get it. We need protectionism in this country, not selling out all of our jobs to foreigners.
Yeah. And this is going to cost us another 219,000 U.S. jobs, according to the Joint Economic Committee.
All this was a buyout for the drug lords and the big bankers out east, Fred. It had nothing to do with helping the American worker or the Mexican worker.
And there's a U.S. trade deficit of $2 7/10 billion with Mexico and $2 1/10 billion with Canada for the first 3 months of '95.
And Newt Gingrich
Wake up, America!
And Newt Gingrich goes out there and brags how he helped push NAFTA through. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you think Bill Clinton's doing a good job with our country today? On gangs and stuff like that, and violence and youth?
Thanks a lot, caller. Bill Clinton is not doing anything for our country today. Basically, he's going to pretty much veto everything that the so-called conservative Congress has passed up to him, and the Senate now is dragging their feet quite a bit, Fred, on what gets to his desk because he's threatening to veto everything that comes up there. So the next 12 months, you're not going to be seeing many bills signed into law that this conservative Congress has passed. Clinton gladly signed the NAFTA into law with that lame duck bunch that lost in the November of '92 elections. Actually, the November '94 elections. The lame ducks that got beat came in there before the new Congress took. The old 103rd Congress came in, voted NAFTA in, with a bunch of losers that had been defeated, and paved the way for this 104th Congress that's in now, and did the American people a disservice. Usually when you have somebody that's lost an election, you don't allow them to come back in after the election, and before the new Congress takes over, you don't allow them to come in and vote on a major piece of legislation like this. But Bob Dole and Newt Gingrich sold out millions of American workers when they pushed that through. And they're going to pay for it dearly, Fred. And I think the American people are waking up now, and that's why Dole is starting to flounder. When they find out that Graham was in there helping, he's going to start to flounder, and you're going to see people like Alan Keyes and Pat Buchanan rise in the polls dramatically. And now with the help of the parasites coming in, it's even going to be better for Pat Buchanan. So we better take a call here, Fred. We only got a few minutes left, and go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Do you use chainsaws a lot because of your hat? You know.
Yes, sometimes you have to use chainsaws to cut through all of the baloney out there. You know what, Fred?
Mm-hmm.
Takes a chainsaw to just get in there and rev the thing up and just cut through all the baloney and all the other garbage that is floating around out there, Fred. A chainsaw makes a clean path right through it.
Yeah.
That's what we need, is more chainsaw legislators.
Within a year of NAFTA's passage, the state of Florida reported 24 to 25% drop in tomato production.
Well, there you have it.
Coming in from Mexico now. A Georgia lighting company announced plans to build a 100,000 square foot plant in Mexico, causing further job losses in the state. And the Scott Paper Company cut 10,500 jobs worldwide, and in October it announced it would spend $148 million on new plants in Mexico.
It's a cheap labor, Fred. Cheap labor, very few benefits, hardly any environmental concerns. You know, the environmentalists turned their backs on the American people when they allowed Congress to push this through and vote on it.
Well, you know that there's another interesting thing there. Ford Motor Company is building 74,000 cars in Mexico. They expected to sell 24,000 in Mexico. They can't sell them in Mexico. They've only sold a few thousand, so they're coming up here, the rest of them.
Pretty hard to buy a brand new Ford on $100 a month. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Are you retarded?
Okay, thank you. Very little. All right, Freddie. Yes, Freddie. Like Ross Perot said, NAFTA is bad for America, and so they brought in the hitman Al Gore and did a number on Perot on a Larry King setup job there, and made Perot look bad. But that doesn't matter how bad they made Perot look. The facts are the facts. They're starting to come in now. This is bad for the environment. It's bad for the American worker, and it's bad for the bankers. It's bad for the American taxpayer. It's just a bad deal all the way around, Fred.
That's true.
And it's not going to help those Mexicans one bit. If it's helping the Mexican people so much, how come they've got all kinds of guerrilla movements going on down in Mexico right now? The people are starving down there. They're picking up guns. They're picking up guns because they don't have enough food to eat, Fred. The last resort in a country when you don't have any other resort is to pick up the gun, and that's what's happening in Mexico. And NAFTA is not going to turn the corner for the Mexican people. They're coming up here in droves, Fred. In one border crossing in California, 65,000 people tried to get across in 1 month. Now, that's a lot of people trying to get into this country. If things are so great in Mexico, why are they coming across like that? Go ahead, caller, you're on the air. Okay, Fred, somebody there wasn't feeling too good. All right, we only got a minute left here, Fred. I'm going to give you one more chance to get a right answer. And then we're going to hang her up for the night. 1939, Fred, August 23rd. You're a young man getting ready to go into the military. Hitler and Stalin signed a secret non-aggression pact. This agreement essentially divided Poland into two halves, one for the Soviet Union and one for Germany. Hitler never intended to honor the agreement. Of course, you know, Fred, that was two socialist powers fighting it out over who was going to control Europe. Of course, later on, Hitler double-crossed Stalin. Between the two of them, they managed to kill off something like 50, 60, 70 million Germans and Russians lost their lives over there. Stalin was starving them out. Hitler was killing his enemies, killing the Jews. Stalin was killing as many of his own countrymen as he could, plus all the millions that lost their lives in the war.
Yes.
So, the answer is Hitler and Stalin signed a secret non-aggression pact.
Right.
And there you have it, Fred. Another edition of the Cow Report with Chuck Lee, brought to you by the fine folks at the Flavin Pop Company. I want to thank you for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you again right here next week on the Cow Report. I've been your host, Chuck Lee, and we'll see you next week, Freddie.
Yes.
Hasta luego.